Before there were temples of stone, before the first word was etched into clay, there was the soul. Not as an abstract idea, not as poetry, but as a force, a fire, a memory of the divine. Imagine this. An initiate stands barefoot in the inner sanctum of a temple long lost to time, perhaps in Egypt, Sumer, or the Indus Valley. Before him, a high priest speaks not of gods and demons but of something far older, his soul, not merely a part of him but the real him, eternal, vast, and unbound by flesh. This wasn't religion, it was science, the science of the unseen. Modern society has all but severed this sacred thread. We speak of psychology, identity, trauma, but rarely do we ask, what is the soul? Where does it reside? What is its journey? And perhaps most important of all, what did the ancients know that we've forgotten? This video isn't just about ideas, it's a rediscovery. We will travel through the forgotten chambers of human history, from the cryptic soul maps of ancient Egypt, to the subtle energy bodies described in Vedic texts, to the shadowy whispers of the Greek mysteries. Each civilization had its own language, its own symbology, but the message, strikingly similar. They all spoke of the soul as something real, navigable, and sacred. So why did this knowledge vanish? Who buried it beneath layers of dogma and distraction? And what happens when we begin to remember? In this journey, we'll uncover the esoteric truths ancient civilizations encoded in their myths, architecture, and rituals. We'll explore the multidimensional nature of the soul, the idea of soul contracts, reincarnation, and the great paradox of human existence, why we forget who we are, only to remember again. Prepare to see history not as a linear timeline but as a spiral of consciousness, echoing eternal truths. Welcome to a knowledge long hidden. And now it begins. To understand what ancient civilizations knew about the soul, we must first shed the modern lens that sees the past as primitive. For the ancients, knowledge was not categorized into science, religion, or philosophy. It was one continuum, a sacred science, where the invisible was as real as the visible. Let us begin in Kemet, the land we now call Egypt. The Egyptians did not see the soul as a singular entity. They believed in a complex constellation of aspects. The Kayor vital essence, the energetic double. The Bayur personality, your mobility in the afterlife. The Akka transfigured being of light, achieved through spiritual purification. And the Ren, your true name, a frequency that connected your soul to the divine order. To them, death was not an end, but a transformation. The Book of Coming Forth by Day, often called the Book of the Dead, wasn't a collection of superstitions, it was a spiritual manual, a guide to navigating the dimensions of the soul's journey. Thousands of miles east, in the Vedic traditions of ancient India, we find a similar sophistication. The soul, or Atman, was described as eternal, untouched by the fluctuations of life and death. The Upanishads' esoteric treatises passed orally for centuries spoke of the soul not as separate from the divine, but as the divine itself. Tat tvamaz, thou art, that, here, the soul was not a fragment of God. It was God, temporarily wearing the mask of a human. The Greeks, inheritors of Egyptian mysteries, veiled their understanding in myth. Yet within those myths lie precise esoteric blueprints. Plato, in his dialogue Phaedrus, describes the soul as a charioteer trying to steer two opposing horses, one noble, one base. This wasn't just allegory, it was psychology centuries ahead of its time. And in the mysteries of Eleusis, initiates symbolically died and were reborn, mirroring the soul's cyclical passage through lifetimes. In Mesoamerica, the Mayans and Aztecs envisioned the soul in layers. They spoke of tonalith, the animating force linked to the sun, and Teoliath, the divine spark that resided in the heart. The soul was tied to celestial rhythms, to planetary movements. Life was a dance between the heavens and the earth. All of these civilizations, separated by oceans, mountains, and time, converged on one idea. The soul is eternal, it is multidimensional, and it came here with purpose. So how did we forget? As empires rose and fell, knowledge became power. The sacred mysteries were no longer for the initiated but suppressed by institutions that feared what they could not control. The soul was reduced to a dogmatic doctrine, stripped of its majesty and complexity. The maps were hidden. The metaphors were literalized. And humanity, once seen as a divine spark in motion, was taught to see itself as sinful, fallen, or empty. But the signs were never fully erased. They're carved into temple walls, hidden in myth, whispered in dreams. We need only remember how to read them. This is not nostalgia. This is not fantasy. It is a reclamation of ancient knowing one that sees consciousness as layered, sacred, and vast beyond measure. In the next section, we will begin to unravel these layers, to explore what the soul truly is, and why it chose to come here. So, what is the soul? To the ancients, the soul was not just a poetic idea or a religious abstraction. It was a living presenza, traveler, a witness, a spark of the eternal clothed in human experience. But here's the first truth. The soul is not inside the body. The body is inside the soul. Imagine a vast field of awareness, subtle, luminous, and alive. The body, mind, and personality are like garments the soul wears, but they are not the self. Just as you are not your clothes, the soul is not the flesh. The soul surrounds and penetrates the body, like the sea around a pearl. Ancient mystics called this the aura, the light body, or the immortal self. Let's begin with the journey. In almost every ancient cosmology, the soul descends from a higher plane into the material world, not by accident, but by intention. This descent is not a punishment, it's a mission. The soul chooses its circumstances, its challenges, even its wounds. Why? Because this world dense, chaotic, imperfect is the only place where the soul can remember its own power through forgetting it. This paradox is central to the soul's path. To remember what it means to be divine, the soul must experience limitation. To reclaim light, it must walk through shadow. The Egyptians called this process the weighing of the heart. Upon death, the heart symbol of the soul's journey was placed on a scale against the feather of Maat, divine truth. If the heart was heavy with unresolved pain, deception, or attachment, the soul was bound to earthly cycles. But if it was light-free, balanced, it ascended to the stars. This wasn't judgment. It was natural law. Every thought, every deed, every moment of choice etched itself into the soul's fabric. In the Vedic tradition, this concept became known as karma, not as punishment, but as memory. The soul accumulates experiences, lessons, and impressions over lifetimes, each one shaping its next journey. The ultimate goal? Moksha, liberation from the cycle, a return to the formless source. But let's go deeper. The soul, according to the Hermetic teachings, is a prism. It reflects the divine light into 7 rays, each ray a different quality: wisdom, will, love, harmony, knowledge, devotion, and divine order. These rays manifest as personality traits, life themes, or archetypal roles. One person may carry the ray of the healer, another the warrior, another the alchemist. You are not random. Your deepest desires, your gifts, your struggles, they are clues. Signs of the soul contract you wrote before arriving. And here lies another ancient truth. The soul forgets on purpose. At the moment of incarnation, the soul passes through the veil of forgetfulness, what the Greeks called lethe, the river of oblivion. This is why most of us can't remember past lives or our pre-birth agreements. But the ancients left us key symbols, rituals, and myths to awaken those memories. One such key? The dream world. To the Aboriginal people of Australia, dreams were not imagination, they were journeys into the true world. The dream time is the soul's realm. In sleep, the conscious mind loosens, and the soul slips into its native terrain, exploring, remembering, even receiving guidance. Another key? Initiation. Mystery schools across the world, whether in Egypt, Greece, or Tibet, offered rites designed to trigger the soul's memory. Through symbolic death and rebirth, the initiate confronted the illusion of the ego and glimpsed the immortal self beneath it. Here, storytelling becomes vital. Myths are not entertainment, they are maps. Take the story of Persephone, descending into the underworld and rising again, or Inanna, the Sumerian goddess stripped of all worldly power before reaching the throne of the underworld. These stories weren't just tales, they were symbolic templates for the soul's descent into the body and its return to source. You are on such a journey now. And if you're watching this, your soul is beginning to remember. Now that we've uncovered the soul's descent and its layered architecture, let's go deeper into its paradoxes, forgotten functions, and the myths that conceal truth as much as they reveal it. Here is the great paradox of the soul. It is both singular and collective, both you and everything else. The ancients believed the soul was like a drop of water returning to the ocean of consciousness, but that drop retained a memory of its shape. The soul is unique, yet never separate. The Atman is the Brahman. The spark is not other than the fire. This is where the teachings diverge from modern interpretations. Today, we see the soul as ours, something personal, but to the ancient mind, the soul was a bridge between the divine and the material, between the many and the one. It was a node in a cosmic web. Let's revisit Egypt. In the deeper layers of Egyptian mysticism knowledge reserved only for initiates, the soul was said to journey through 12 gates after death, each one a trial of consciousness. These weren't just post-mortem events. Each gate represented stages of awakening, tests of clarity, will, and alignment. And when the soul succeeded, it became Sahu, a radiant being of light, capable of moving freely between worlds. In the Tibetan tradition, the Bardo Thodolf, so-called Tibetan Book of the Dead, describes a similar process. After death, the soul enters the Bardo, an intermediate state where it encounters projections of its own consciousness. If untrained, it mistakes these visions for external realities and becomes trapped in samsaric illusions. But if prepared through meditation, mantra, or insight, the soul recognizes these as reflections of its own mind and ascends. These teachings hold a crucial truth. The soul creates reality, not the other way around. Your external life is a mirror of your internal state. This was not philosophy, it was mechanics. The Hermetic axiom said it clearly: as above, so below. As within, so without. The soul dreams the body, not the reverse. You are living inside the echo of your soul's choices, many of which were made before you were born. Let's now explore one of the most misunderstood ideas: reincarnation. To the ancient soul scientists, reincarnation was not a loop of punishment, it was a spiral of learning. Each life is a classroom, each body a tool, each experience a lesson chosen not always consciously, but always precisely. And here's where it gets even more mysterious. Many traditions spoke of soul groups or constellations of incarnated beings who journey together over lifetimes. The Egyptians called this Sa, the energetic bond. The Vedic texts referred to soul families, and the Greeks had the myth of soul mateshavs of a whole. In this view, the people you meet, the loves you find, the conflicts you face, they are not random. They are agreements, contracts made before incarnation, designed to awaken, challenge, and transform. But what about the shadow? What about pain, trauma, or those born into suffering? This is where the mystery deepens. The ancients did not romanticize the soul's path. They saw shadow not as failure, but as initiation. Every wound holds a key. Every descent carries the seed of rebirth. This is why myths are filled with trials, betrayals, even death, because the soul's growth demands fire. To resist pain is to prolong it. To face it consciously is to alchemize it. The alchemists called this solve et coagulatizolve, and rebind. The ego dissolves, the soul emerges stronger, clearer. The old self dies, the true self shines through. And now, a truth hidden in plain sight. The world you see is structured to help you forget who you are. Not maliciously, but by design. Why? Because the forgetting is part of the play. Lila, the Sanskrit term, means divine game. The soul comes here to forget, so that it may experience the joy of remembering. Every synchronicity, every deep déjà vu, every dream that haunts you, these are breadcrumbs, triggers, whispers from your higher self saying, "Wake up, you wrote this story, now live it consciously." So you've journeyed through the mysteries. You've glimpsed what ancient civilizations knew about the soul, its origin, its path, its paradox. But how do you bring this wisdom into the chaos of everyday life? How do you live from the soul, instead of merely talking about it? Let's begin with a foundational shift. Stop identifying with the mask. You are not your job, your failures, your trauma, or even your personality. These are roles temporary expressions. Useful, yes, but not ultimate. The more you cling to these masks, the more the soul stays buried beneath layers of illusion. The first practice is simple but profound. 1. Self-inquiry. Who am I, really? This question is not meant to be answered once. It is meant to become your companion. In Vedic tradition, this is Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge through self-inquiry. Ask it not from the intellect, but from silence. Sit with it daily, watch what falls away. What remains is closer to soul. Next, 2. Dream tracking. The ancients considered dreams to be messages from the soul. Before you sleep, place a notebook beside your bed. Set an intention. I ask my soul to speak tonight. When you wake, write anything you recall: symbols, feelings, fragments. Over time, patterns emerge, themes, warnings, guidance. Your dreams are not nonsense, they are your soul's secret language. You are receiving teachings every night. Are you listening? 3. Ritual space. Create a sacred space in your home, even a small corner. Light a candle, burn frankincense, myrrh, or palo santo. Place symbols that resonate with your soul: an ankh, a mandala, a feather. This space is not decorative, it is a portal, a reminder, a declaration that the sacred belongs not just in temples, but in your living room. Use this space for meditation, journaling, inner dialogue. Ask your soul questions, then write the response with your non-dominant hand. This bypasses the ego and accesses deeper layers. 4. Observe synchronicity. What the modern world calls coincidence, the ancients called omens. Start paying attention, repeating numbers, animal encounters, overheard words that answer a question in your heart. These are soul signals. Keep a synchronicity journal, write them down. Patterns will form. The soul speaks in symbols, not logic. And now, the most powerful tool. 5. Conscious decision-making. Soul first. Before any major decision, ask not just, what do I want, but what would nourish my soul? What would bring me closer to my essence? The soul doesn't always choose what is easy, but it always chooses what is true. And in that truth, there is peace. This means saying no when your energy says no. Walking away from what drains you, even if it's familiar. Trusting your intuition even when your logic screams otherwise. You are here to live in alignment, not in fear. But be warned, as you live more soulfully, the false layers around you may begin to crumble. Old relationships may dissolve. Certain ambitions may no longer excite you. Your inner world will start to rewire your outer one. This is the soul shedding its skin, revealing what is real beneath the illusion. You are not becoming someone new. You are returning to what you've always been. One final practice. Each morning, place your hand over your heart and whisper, I remember who I am. I walk in soul today. That one act realigns your field. You walk into the world differently, less reactive, more radiant. Not perfect, but present. And the soul only ever lives in the present. So now, dear seeker, you've glimpsed what the ancients held sacred. You've heard the whispers of Egypt, the songs of Vedic sages, the echoes of Hermetic halls. You've seen that the soul is not just an idea. It is your truest self, quietly guiding your life from behind the veil. The ancients did not worship the soul. They honored it. They structured entire civilizations around aligning with its rhythm. Temples were not built to gods above, but to awaken the God within. The soul was seen as immortal, yes, but more than that, transformative. Not static light, but a living fire capable of growth, evolution, remembering. In forgetting, it learns. In falling, it awakens. In dying, it is reborn. This is your journey. Not someday. Not in the next life. But right now. If your heart felt something stir during this video, if you felt a resonance, a remembering, even a quiet ache, that is not emotion, that is recognition. Your soul is not waiting for permission. It is waiting for your attention. So the question becomes, will you keep walking in sleep, or will you rise, awake? Let this be your invitation. To live soul first. To seek meaning where others see chance. To walk slowly. To listen deeply. To trust that there is a reason you were drawn here today. Nothing is random, not even this moment. And if you're ready to explore further, to uncover more hidden truths, ancient wisdom, and soul-deep mysteries, subscribe, share this with a fellow seeker, and join this growing circle of awakening. The soul doesn't walk alone. It calls others to rise with it. Until next time, walk with light, speak with truth, and live as if your soul wrote every word of your story. Because it did.